Hi, this is entry 39 of Bill Adkin's life. And today, Bill is going to start with a song and he's going to play On Top of Old Smokey for us. And then we're going to get into painting stories. And Bill, why don't you go ahead and sing On Top of Old Smokey for us?
Okay. On top of old Smokey, all covered with snow, I lost my true lover, for courting so slow. For courting's a pleasure, and parting is grief, and a false-hearted lover is worse than a thief. A thief will just rob you and take what you save, but a false-hearted lover will lead you to the grave. The grave will decay you and turn you to dust. Not one girl in 100 a poor man can trust. So come all ye maidens and listen to me. Never place your affection on a green willow tree.
Very nice. Can you play it for us, Bill?
I'll try. Oh boy, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. So I understand you had a lot of challenges in your life related to painting houses. And I would like to hear a couple of those painting houses stories.
Well, the two that I can remember is our own home that my wife and I owned in East Peoria, Illinois, that I painted by myself, 100%. And that was a real piece of work. But I got into it when we moved to Albuquerque. Mother had sold a house in Glen Ellen. Dad had already gone to Albuquerque. He had a job, but not the job he wanted. And we got there and we checked in a motel. And the folks immediately met this lady and her two children, and they just got along great. She had a younger daughter who was a couple of years younger than me, and she had a son that was about almost exactly the same age as my older brother. So they just mixed together fine, and. But they were only there a couple of weeks. And she said, I bought a house and it needs a little work, but I can afford it. And so they moved in. And the folks kept in touch with her, of course. And she came to them and said, I've thought that I could afford to have someone paint the house because it's in kind of bad shape. Not necessarily peeling, it's just faded and so on. So Dad said, well, did you contact a contractor? She said, I contacted 3 contractors, and they all gave me a bid. One was real high, and the other 2 were about the same. And I can't afford those at all. And my dad said, well, boy, what would you want to do? She says, I don't know what to do. I'm asking you to see what you think. So my dad said, well, let me think about it a little bit. So he had a meeting with my brothers and I, and said, well, would you guys like to team up and paint the house real quick? And Sam and Frank said, no, Dad, it's not my cup of tea. And of course, we had all helped paint, so it wasn't something new for us. And he said, Bill? And I said, sure, Dad. I liked challenges, so that was a challenge for me. No problem. So we met with her, and she told me what she would pay me. And I told her I wanted to look at paint and then come back and tell her what brand I wanted to use. And she said, that's fine. And so I found a paint brand that was good quality and said, this is the paint I want to use. And I can't think of it. I thought I had it on the end of my tongue, and now I can't remember it. But she, based on what the salesman said, she bought this paint. And obviously, what she had to do was to have the house painted first and then the trim done later. So she bought the paint, and I started making arrangements so that I had time off each day after school. And I'd usually paint for about 4 hours. And started in. And it went slow, but then it started speeding up because I was doing a better job. And suddenly I had the house painted, but not the trim. And the trim was harder to do, of course. But I painted all the trim, and that's where I put in the hours was in the trim. But I was in her budget. She could afford that, so she wasn't worried about a thing. And finally I finished. And Dad checked it over real carefully and said, boy, Bill, you did one heck of a job. And I said, well, Dad, you always taught me one thing. If I'm going to do it right and do it to my satisfaction that I can be proud of. And I said, she got my commitment. And so that made her very happy and my folks very happy. And then about the same time, they sold the house that we had bought when we first moved to Albuquerque. And they had a chance to buy this house. The people allowed them to make what I call a double payment. You make the house payment, and then you give them $100 or $200 extra a month to reduce the difference in what they could afford. So the folks bought the house, and we moved into it, and it was beautiful shape, and we didn't have to do a damn thing to it. And I remember helping my dad build the workbench in the garage so that the car could easily fit in and so on. And started making cabinets and shelves and so on, so all the stuff that we accumulated slowly had a place for itself. And now we could see it so that we could grab it if we wanted to use it. So that was the house that Mrs. Fort had me paint. And don't ask me what color. I don't remember. I don't. All I remember is that the trim was white, and but I was very proud of the job I did.
Tell me about painting stucco.
Oh God, yeah, I forgot. This house was stucco. Now stucco is a type of plaster that you use to roughen up the surface of the home. And a good stucco man can do it real fast, but when he leaves these edges out, there can be places where the paint is going to be hard to tuck in. And over a period of time, this house had decayed, and it was in pretty bad shape. So I had to learn how to stucco. Not stucco, but paint stucco. And I did, and I got so I found a couple of things that a company, a store that sold paint, gave me that people use for stucco, and so my dad bought that stuff, and so when I painted, it was no problem at all, and Mrs. Fort was just ecstatic. But our house that we bought didn't need painting, so I was done painting. But I used my skill later for another home we had, and so that was my stucco learning.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Bill, for sharing those stories, and we'll be back.
Okay.